now, Zimbabwe and the European Union have begun their first formal political talks in 17 years. EU ambassadors in Zimbabwe met government officials in the first of a series of planned meetings aimed at ending decades of trade and economic hostility. The EU removed the majority of economic sanctions against Zimbabwe in 2014, but does not give direct financial assistance to the government. The closed-door talks, which lasted about 4 hours, were described as frank, focusing on trade, investment, human rights and democracy. Relations between the two parties declined under Robert Mugabe's presidency, and sanctions were placed on Zimbabwe over human rights abuses. Joining us now to discuss more on this is a Zimbabwean journalist, Nigel Yamatumbu. Hello, Nigel. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. This, of course, is a major development in Zimbabwe. Talks resuming after 17 years. How are Zimbabweans reacting to this?
Zimbabweans generally are cautiously optimistic that the beginning of these talks would pressurize the Zimbabwean government to implement the long overdue reforms, and people are hopeful that this could be the dawn of a new democratic era, and this could really deal with the legitimacy crisis that the country is facing. We are yet to really see the roadmap on the nature of these talks, as they are still largely, by and large, preliminary, and we will be in a position to really see whether the talks will materialize and will produce anything for Zimbabwe or any mutual beneficial deal between Zimbabwe and the EU once the terms and conditions have been finalized.
Well, yeah, it is kind of a big deal, isn't it? What more can you tell us about the talks, and what results can we expect?
The beginning of talks between the European Union and Zimbabwe after more than 17 years is indeed a landmark development in the country's politics, especially given that the country had been under economic, political sanctions from the European bloc. What remains to be seen is whether these talks will actually result or translate into renewed cooperation between the European Union and Zimbabwe, given that the EU observer report makes it quite clear what Zimbabwe needs to do in order to restart the engagement process, part of which are economic reforms, political reforms, media reforms, and the general constitutional reform process, which President Mnangagwa is committed to fulfilling. However, nothing much has been seen on the ground outside policy pronouncements, and also just the general commitment that government could possibly change the governance of this country, of Zimbabwe.
All right, then, Nigel, we'll have to see how it all plays out. Thank you for speaking to us on Network Africa.